News out this morning is that the National African Federated Chamber of Commerce and Industry is looking at buying a stake in one of 7 banks listed on the JSE. Suggested that Nafcoc plans to use the 1.8 billion rand in cash that it has at its disposal to buy a stake of as much as 15%. Joining me with more on this is Lawrence Mavundla. He is the president of Nafcoc. Lawrence, thanks very much for coming into the studio today.
Thank you.
And first of all, the rationale for such a purchase. Why would you want to own a 15% stake in a South African bank?
Basically, we would want to participate in the banking industry because, in the first place, it is wrong that we do not have in South Africa a black-owned bank. We started as Nafcoc owning African Bank. We lost it. We now want to go back at it because of the fact that there is still the lack of access to finance by predominantly entrepreneurs, and mainly in the rural areas and in the townships. People have to travel long distances in order to access financial services, which is also wrong. So we believe we should participate in order for us to have a say, in how things are done, because most of the time the shareholders, they look at mostly that market as a risk market, and we believe we can say it is not a risk. We can play in that market.
Of course, we had collaboration among the large banks for the Mzansi account, which came out a number of years ago. Postbank also participating in that. Hasn't that improved access to finance for people in rural areas, for SMMEs? Aren't the banks obliged under the Mzansi account to make finance accessible? In
fact, yes, they do. But the problem is that the poor people, actually pay more for bank charges than rich people. In fact, rich people don't pay at all.
I can show you I'm paying.
The poor people pay to their neck, for that. So we believe that, it is unfair that poor people should be paying these, and also they lose a lot because most of the time they can't maintain their account and the account is left with 50 rands. I always ask a question. Where do these funds that are remaining in the accounts go? Because people close their account, but they are never refunded if they are left, for example, with 50 rands.
Okay, now you're looking at buying an initial 15% stake in a bank. I would assume you'd want to build this stake up over time, because if you wanted to really have a say in how the bank does business, you would want to become a significant shareholder in a bank.
Yes, the most important thing is obviously normally you'd find that the banks are normally owned by very many shareholders who own between 2% and 5% and so on. So like in the case of Anglo, you'll find that the Oppenheimer family maybe owns more than 10%, but they control, they have a bigger say because they are the biggest shareholder. So we're looking at it in that aspect.
Now, of course, if you're going to buy a 15% stake for 1.8 billion rand, it would have to be one of the smaller listed banks that you're looking at, such as your Capitex, your Mercantile banks, one of those. Are you able to say, are you in discussions with any banks at the moment? Is there an announcement imminent?
We are in discussion, but we can't talk about it.
Why does it have to be a listed bank? Can't it also be an unlisted entity? Couldn't you start a bank of your own?
Starting a bank is onerous. It would be quite difficult. You'd have to build an infrastructure from scratch. You'd have to, the public would have to trust you over a long period. Climbing on a bank that exists is, but it doesn't matter whether it's listed or not. But what we are saying, it's very important that it's an existing bank with a banking license already, allowed to do the things that we want to do.
What would Nafcoc bring to the party? Of course, you don't have, you're not bankers yourselves, you don't have banking experience. What would you as a shareholder bring to this?
We would bring first and foremost our membership, and our membership is comprised of 7 sectors, which starts from the hawkers, the taxi people, the retailers, the manufacturers, the taverners, the farmers, the security and cleaning There's quite a lot of...
so there's a lot of potential customers for any bank that brings you on. I presume they would also like the empowerment status that you would bring to the bank.
But I think we'll bring better than empowerment, because we'll bring the entrepreneurial flair that they lack, because bankers don't take the kind of risk that entrepreneurs would take.
Of course, all of our large banks signed empowerment deals a number of years ago, the smaller ones as well. Why did you not try to participate at that stage when there were stakes being sold to black investors?
But the fact of the matter is that none of those participants that got onto that empowerment situation have a say. If they do have a say, they are still owing a lot of money. So, normally if you are still owing, you can't talk too much, because, the people who borrowed you the money would call up their debt.
What do you think the Reserve Bank would think about this? Because obviously the Reserve Bank does look for strong shareholders to buy stakes in banks, shareholders with banking expertise or with very deep pockets, because banks obviously need capital from time to time.
I think the Reserve Bank would have to think about its mandate of transforming the banking industry. And I think it would be an opportunity presented to them to implement this mandate by enabling us to make it easy for us to participate, because at the end of the day, it's very important that we have the black population participating with their own funds, because in most cases, most of the people who have participated, they do not have their own.
Of course, you also have a stake in Soho Sun. How would a stake in a bank fit in with the portfolio of investments that you are building as Nafcoc?
We want to exit the issue of being an investment organization ourselves and stick to financial services. So we're going to be growing a number of participation in the financial services, such as insurance, medical aid, and other financial...
So things that would benefit your members?
Yes, because in the past we would have had, we had to compete with our members, for various businesses, and it is not a good idea that a chamber should compete with its members.
Lawrence, when can we expect an announcement on this?
I think I would say the latest would be the end of September, but we're working hard at it.
Lawrence, well, I hope we get you back at the end of September to chat about such a deal. Thanks very much for coming in today.